Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain also.
Amaya Makinde, good morning and welcome to the program today.
Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And from Abuja, good morning, I'm Maokbe Ogunyusu.
Surprise, none of you noticed that I didn't remind you of the day today.
It's okay, go ahead.
It's Wednesday, by the way.
Is it Friday? What, Thursday? Okay. Well, we know that yesterday the Minister of Education met with the Vice Chancellor's Committee, and so they're looking into that. Again, the hopes are up for lots of people. They just hope that this time that we will get it right. Well, yes, the country, everyone, because the students, oh boy, I guess we'll wait and see. But the dailies, of course, will reflect all of that, and that's why we're going to go right ahead into the dailies and bring you the perspective of what transpired yesterday. This morning, we'll start with New Telegraph. Everybody, take a look at that. Strike Committee of Vice Chancellors wants 800,000 naira salary for professors. Wades into FG ASUU rift. Floats peace building team. ASUU rejected prof's 35% pay rise. 200 billion naira revitalization fund earned allowances in 2023 budget. This is ascribed to FG. So you wonder. And then you see, set up committee on unions' demands. It's New Telegraph, guys. Do we have it? That is the big lead on the front page of New Telegraph this morning. So we have to reconcile these headlines with. So if that were the case, I guess we'll wait and see.
Well, it's only a matter of time because it will seem like all the papers reflect the same thing this morning. Look at the front page of This Nigeria. That is it's a different angle to it. And look at it. ASUU, FG eats humble pie. Who baked that pie? I don't know, but hey.
Well, the editor could have been nicer. That's a bit hard on the federal government.
Hey, it's headline. Okay, and they are just words. What do you use for headline?
Whose side are you on?
I'm on the side of the people.
Okay.
Okay. Of the students.
There are people on every side, okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So, look at the
saying that there are people on every side. On both sides.
Announces 23.5% salary increment for varsity workers. To review no work, no pay decisions. Sets up another committee to look into grey areas in lecturers' demands. That and several others on the front page of the paper this morning. Well, that's the lead of This Nigeria today.
And from This Nigeria, let's quickly flip to the Daily Trust newspapers. And, of course, it also leads with the ASUU story. And this is how it is rendered. FG offers professors 35% pay rise. Other varsity workers will get 23.5%. And take a look at the riders. To release 200 billion naira next year for revitalization, earned allowances, raises new committee to discuss no work, no pay policy. Well, other papers, report it this way, that the federal government may reconsider its position, and let's hope that is done so that this strike will be out of the way of Nigerian students and they can return to work. Keep your salary increment, implement our agreements. That's attributed to ASUU, and that reminds me of the Unilag ASUU chair who was here last week, who said that it's been quite a while since they got a salary increase. I can't remember the year now, maybe 2009 or 2011, but that's a long time in coming. So it's really hard to celebrate over 23.5% and 35%.
Celebrate small victories.
Well, you're on the side of the people, so it's something to cheer. Buhari warns government officials against signing unimplementable pacts. Again, that's interesting and gives you an insight into government's position. Oh, wow. Well, that's the Daily Trust newspapers for you. Let's quickly take a look at another. Maokwe.
Well, let's take a look at leadership for you, and they have this: end in sight for ASUU strike as federal government reviews no work, no pay policy. So that is also their story, following up on the education story. Meets with vice chancellors, pro-chancellors in renewed efforts to end strike. Inaugurates 14-man committee to revisit Briggs' report. Indefinite strike anguish, internal turmoil. To me, that's according to Adamu, as a Minister of Education. But this is interesting. Inaugurates 14-man committee to revisit. This Briggs report is a rather new one, and we're inaugurating another committee to look at what a previous committee did. Hey, you'll find details, maybe the answers why, on page 4 of the paper. You also have this: Liz Truss formally takes over as UK Prime Minister. They're still following that story for you. Citing involvement in oil theft, federal government disbands anti-vandal squad. So you might want to read page 12 to see that story, but nothing new there, because if you listen to those who have been trying to do something about the theft of oil in the Niger Delta, they tell you that even those who have been detailed to protect the pipelines are also very much involved. So you might, I'm not talking about the new contractors. I'm talking about those who were previously contracted under our security agencies to look at it. So I don't get misquoted. Page 12 is where you find details. Budget Office DG contradicts Pantami, says 5% telecom tax stands. There needs to be some clarification here, because we listened to the Minister for Communications saying that the 5% tax has been suspended. So what is the DG Budget Office saying? You might want to read details on page 7 to get clarification on it. And you also see this here: 15,000 benefits as Kogi launches Bello Care program. Page 13 is where you'll get details. Let's look at a number of other stories, or perhaps I should leave you to find something for yourself. There is something at the back page here: Serena, end of an era. I like that. I like the rhyme of that. Thank you. That will be it for leadership.
Well, that will be very interesting, as a matter of fact, because, I mean, they need to make up their minds, government. Minister says it's not there. DG says it's there. So whose report do we believe now? Oh, boy. Well, take a look at Daily Independent, for instance. I mean, we also have, I beg your pardon, the Guardian newspaper. Oh, that's a big one you see right there, the front page. I'll go ahead with that.
FG to resist no work, no pay as VCs push to end strike. That was interesting, what you find on the front page of what you find. And it is interesting what you find on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. You know, especially when you factor in the comments of the Minister of Education. But then I also heard him say that the VCs and pro-chancellors have very important roles to play. The question that came to my mind is this something they're just learning?
Well, yes, they have very important roles to play. We know every stakeholder in that sector, they've got very important roles to play. But we know that the lecturers are lecturers.
Chamberlain, my point is this. The employees of the federal government work with the pro-chancellors and vice-chancellors in the universities, and they have a governing council, don't they? So why would those matters in the first place go that far? Is it the problem with the laws? I mean, I'm wondering why this issue will even degenerate. As you said earlier, maybe we'll find out more on this.
Well, the last we checked, it's the unions that have the responsibility of fighting for the demands of the lecturers.
It's the unions that are in dispute with the government.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not the VCs.
Not the pro-chancellors.
So, I don't get it.
You know, it's a little...
Unless I'm missing something.
Better articulated by the unions rather than the pro-chancellors and the vice-chancellors.
For instance, the universities in states, are also having issues, joining what we call sympathy strikes, which, of course, some state governments are kicking against. The question in my head is, these institutions have governing councils in their schools run by the VCs. At what point, I mean, how would they...
Don't worry, we'll try and ask a former VC.
Okay.
or someone who's in there to tell us how it works.
Exactly. So that's important. Well, of course, at the bottom of the page, in the front page of the Guardian, you have UK expectations high as trust takes over. Expectations high? I guess we'll see. Look at the front page of Nigerian News Direct. It's rather different what you have on the front page. Nigeria to replace Russia as major gas supplier to Europe. Front page of the Nigerian News Direct, and it's according to the Minister of State for Petroleum, Silver, Access Technology, and funding needed for 200 TCF gas reserves. Stories on page 17. Well, that sounds like good business, right?
Technology and funding needed. So perhaps it suggests that after that, those are provided, then you can begin to think about replacement of Russia.
And if that is successful, let's hope that accountability also is guaranteed.
What about the laws? Have we done something about our laws? Some of the players there tell us that the law says that all the gas here, we've got to use it, what do they call it, locally. So can they export gas right now? I don't know. I guess players there will tell us.
Is that even the problem? Or
You can't export our gas. That's a problem.
But NLNG exports gas.
Yeah, that's different.
Oh, really?
From the, it's liquefied natural gas.
Yeah, good. It's a conundrum of sorts, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it's worth having a conversation about so that we understand these issues better.
And
But
the
I say
concerns of
again,
the IOCs, because that's the perspective of the IOCs, actually, even though you may have question marks about them, but that's what some of them say.
I say again, genuine accountability is key, particularly because there's a report that said
Everywhere,
Nigeria recorded zero oil revenue in the month of August. We're in September now. In the month of August, that is something to be worried about. But in the month of July, Nigeria recorded $517 million on oil revenue. So zero is a far cry from 517 or so or thereabouts $1 million.
So how much are the refineries bringing in?
Well,
just next week.
Did you say refineries? I was talking about crude oil. Let's go to Daily Independent newspapers. Well, all the other stories, including Daily Independent, have already reported ASUU. So let's take a look at some politics from the front page of Daily Independent. And you see there at the bottom of the picture spread, Tinubu's loyalists want APC chair Adamu removed before campaigns. So the ruling party also has its fair share of internal wranglings. Well, we're already in September. What's happening? Let's hope that these issues are resolved. That's, what that one. Let's take a look at maybe two others before we exit. This one will interest you. Customs seize explosive-making chemical, military wares in Ogun. Yeah, that's another victory in the fight against insecurity in the country, and we hope that that continues. And lastly, just right beside the picture spread there, you find this one: INEC to publish full list of registered voters soon. That's attributed to the INEC boss, Yakubu. Commission revises framework on IDPs voting. You find details of this story on page 29 of Daily Independent newspapers. And that's Daily Independent for you.
It's got to be on their website too.
Yeah.
Well, Vanguard has this, also following the line of politics here. PDP, fresh plots to oust ASUU on. Allies plan counter moves. Wike's group in fresh plots to oust ASUU. NWC backs him. Why Atiku must preside over next session, that's according to a BOT member. Says ex-VP playing politics with ASUU's removal. One item agenda on the cards. Stop fooling Rivers people, Wike tells PDP. Worried governorship aspirants to meet Wike. Atiku meets PDP reps members, appoint Aniagu media aide. APC mocks PDP chair. You have all of the stories for you on page 5 of the paper. If you want to stuff yourself on politics, there's certainly enough to munch on this morning. Page 5 is where you find details. Boko Haram banditry may end church in Nigeria, if that's the PFN speaking now. Try to remember what their acronym means. They're not the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria. Pentecostal something. It's Page 8 will give you the details, just in case you're wondering like me and can't remember what the acronym means. But you also have a number of other stories at the bottom there. They also have the story on ASUU strike. Federal government may make U-turn on no work, no pay policy. How gunmen invaded Labour Party's meeting in Enugu. That's certainly troubling. Page 13 is where you'll find details, because we're hoping that we'll be able to have politics without violence of any kind in this season. So when you read this sort of story, you have to ask, what is going on here? Yes, we know that, there are pockets of insecurity here and there, but we're hoping that it will not be getting into the gatherings of politicians. We saw it earlier in Anambra, where I think the very first time that the current governor tried to, show interest in the game, even his personal police aide was killed when gunmen invaded that meeting. We're hoping that we won't see a repeat of that. But page 13 will give you details just in case you want to take a look at that particular story. DSTV Go TV tariff hike. Tribunal dismisses case against MultiChoice. Is page 9 read for you. Mr. and Mrs. I'm going to read it this morning because Mr. is playing the ostrich. Here you go. Mr. says, "Dear, you're not looking cheerful. What's the matter?" And Mrs. says, "You increased my allowance last week, but the price of items have gone up again, and I don't know how to tell you." And Mr. says, "Okay, if you know how, let me know." I mean, that's not playing the ostrich. I don't know what is. Let's leave it there for Vanguard. Vanguard Sports is on the back page, and Mr. or Mrs.
I thought he was just, being as frank as possible.
Exactly. I don't know why that's a problem.
Did things increase if she knows how?
Well, she doesn't know how to tell Mr.
But then she has told Mr.
No, she doesn't know how to tell Mr.
He doesn't want to misconstrue her, because it will be another war civil.
Exactly. Because, you want to present a bill, you need to know how to present the bill.
But the bill has now been presented.
No, that wasn't the bill. That was an idea.
You see why they don't know how? We'll be back in a moment. Don't go away.
And public universities embarked on an industrial action, and for this reason the Education Minister, Mr. Adamu, is meeting pro-chancellors, chancellors and vice-chancellors of all the public universities in the country. It's not the first time the federal government will be engaging in such an effort to resolve its lingering impasse with the members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, and the fact that none of the meetings has yielded any success is giving the Minister of Education some sleepless nights.
For me, the past 2 weeks have been a very dark period of personal anguish and internal turmoil. I used to see myself that in a climate of frankness and with mutual goodwill, it will fall to my lot to bring an end to the incessant strikes in the education sector. This so far has not proved possible, or at least not as easy, or as quickly, or as straightforward as I think, or as I used to think. Because I know there was a time I boasted that I will be able to stop the strike in 2017. And this was in tandem with the unions. They agreed. Unfortunately, this has not happened.
He also discloses some of the offers that the federal government had made to the striking lecturers, including increasing their salaries.
The package offered made centered around 4 positions agreed upon by government, and these are the centers. Number 1, that the federal government can only afford a 23.5 salary increase across the board for all categories of the workforce in all federal universities, except for the professorial cadre, which will enjoy a 35% upward review. Number 2, that henceforth allowances that pertain to ad hoc duties of the academic and non-academic staff should be paid as and when due by the governing councils of universities to which services were rendered and to the staff who perform them.
Among other demands ASUU is making of the federal government are funding for the revitalization of public universities and payment of earned academic allowances, for which President Muhammadu Buhari is said to have approved the sum of 150 billion naira to be provided in the 2023 budget as funds for revitalization of federal universities and 50 billion naira for the payment of outstanding arrears of earned academic allowances. But that would not make the lecturers renege on their decision to keep academic activities in public universities grounded, as the union declared an indefinite strike on the 29th of August, while the federal government insisted on implementing its no-work, no-pay policy. However, at the end of the over 2-hour closed-door meeting, the federal government seems to be making some adjustments in our earlier stand on the no-work, no-pay policy.
The meeting constituted a committee made up of 4 pro-chancellors and 5 vice-chancellors to be chaired by the minister to further look at the additional demands ASUU is making, particularly the areas where there has been no consensus. As I speak to you, that committee is meeting under the chairmanship of the Minister of Education, Adama, and they will proceed to meet with Mr. President on the outcome of the deliberations of that committee that has been set. 2 basic areas that this committee will be looking at, among other things, is the no work, no pay issue. The second is the issue of remunerations of university lecturers. These are the 2 areas that they are going to specifically iron out and meet the president.
We had very frank deliberations on all the issues. And I'm personally convinced, as the chairman of council of the National Open University of Nigeria, that the dark clouds will soon clear.
The committee is expected to submit its report to the government within 2 weeks from now. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
All right, so that is what we'll be talking about this morning. And as you've seen there, Professor Tola Badejo joins us next. He's a former Vice Chancellor of Wesley University in Ondo State, but he's now back to Obafemi Awolowo University in Ife, Department of Zoology. Good morning, Prof. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning, Kimberly.
Okay, so, all right. What can you tell us? Because, yes, we do know as much. The meeting held, the government has put up a committee to review the no work, no pay policy. Some offers have been made. But there are several other scenarios playing out which details are not fully out as a result of the meetings that are going on. But from what was said yesterday that is in the public domain, how does this come across to you? Do you see this as light at the end of the tunnel concerning ASUU strike?
Well, I just listened to a pro-chancellor saying that the dark clouds will soon clear. It's optimism I share, but laced with pessimism. I'm not quite sure that there is light at the end of the tunnel. This is a government that should have done this right from day one. We are talking of a tactical committee now. Not sure if after this committee, another committee will be set up to look at what this committee has done. That was the Professor, this former Vice Chancellor of Port Harcourt. There was this committee that said, that made some recommendations. Where are the recommendations? Why should you have to set up another committee to look at what is obvious? No work, no pay can never apply to professors or university lecturers. Teaching is what we don't do when we're on strike. Teaching. And teaching is just a small fraction of what we do. As researchers, we grade exams, we mark scripts, we do all sorts of things. No professor, no lecturer will abandon research because it's on strike. We have work every day. We work from home. We work from whatever. In Obafemi Awolowo University, there's no house in the quarter that does not have a study, which shows that they know that we work from home and all that. So I'm really amused. Although I'm pleasantly surprised that they are taking this step again. It appears as if they want a face-saving device to make us call off the strike. But until I receive a lot in my account, from my account or whatever, I would not take a promissory note, and I don't think any ASUU member what is such will want to take a promissory note. You can imagine 2023 budget. They have been in power since 2015. Now they want to include our demands in 2023 budget for the heat of their departure. It's ridiculous.
Well, Prof, I think, we understand that for you and for every other member of ASUU, that appears to be the bone of contention, hitting nail on the head for them, meaning until they see that they may not call it all off. But could you tell us about this? We read and hear that there's this Sustainable Peace Building Committee consisting of former vice chancellors to see how they can also address some of this problem, perhaps liaising with the government. Are you a member of that committee? Have you heard anything about that committee, for instance?
Well, I'm hearing for the first time. I'm not. I was a vice chancellor of a private university, so maybe it's former visits of federal government university and maybe state university. But I'm hearing for the first time. But are these people, did they go on strike? Why is government talking to people who are even out of service? In fact, this meeting with both chancellors, VCs, are they on strike? Talk to us directly. Because as is on strike. You see, one thing that makes me happy about our demand is about this revitalization thing. The money will not be released to ASUU chairman in the various universities. The council and the VC will disburse the money and do what. And I don't see any VC telling a professor of ASUU engineering to go and execute the project or whatever. They are doing it on their own. But if that is the only thing government has done, we would have gone back to work. And they are talking of no work, no pay. It's ridiculous. Me, I've been working on. I have been doing research. I've been interacting with colleagues online and everything. But teaching is what we have not been doing. And I said, I repeat, it's just fraction, it's no fraction of I did.
So, Prof, however minimal, we must agree that some progress have been made, when you consider information in public domain that federal government may be reconsidering its no work, no pay policy. So with regards to that, what was different this time in the negotiation? Was it the absence of ASUU and the the absence of that aluta continua spirit, or what was different about the approach of pro-chancellors and vice-chancellors at this meeting with the Minister of Education?
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I want to say that if ASUU goes on strike, the federal government should negotiate with those on strike. Remember, there was a time they said Chief of Staff Ibrahim Gambari should head the committee. What happened to that committee? Now, there was a time the BRICS committee, what happened to their recommendations? We read their recommendations. And all the lies that people were telling about their recommendations. So now that they want to review no work, I agree with you that, well, I'm pleasantly surprised that they want to review no work. It's just like asking somebody to come and tell you what 2 + 2 is. The minister knows that no work no pay cannot apply. We are not dock workers. We are not custom officers that make illegal money more than their salary on a daily basis. So nobody should please disrespect us. This government does not have intellectuals in this country, and it's quite a bit.
So, Prof, like ASUU, do you believe that federal government has money to meet its commitments to the unions, but somehow it's not forthcoming? If you do, why do you believe so?
Well, you have used the right word, believe. You believe what you are not sure of. Well, I don't know whether they have or not, but what I know is that this federal government gave money to Taliban in Afghanistan, gave bought cars for Niger Republic, and it's just confirming what some elder statesmen are saying about some agenda, about some section of this country, thinking that they belong to other countries, thinking that they want to make the rulers all over the time. You can imagine this country. Elections around the corner. They are behaving as if they don't want people to vote for their party. It's absurd. It's also no work, no pay. Yeah, let them review it. It's a first saving device. Then the coach chancellor and VCs will now tell them, okay, let us pay their outstanding salary, so we will persuade them to go to work and whatever. It's a first saving device. I don't know where it lost that's no input of common sense upheld by a responsible government.
Well, it's also interesting that the Minister of Education is also in some way a product of the academia or a part of the academia himself. And in that meeting that he had with pro-chancellors and vice-chancellors, Prof, he said something that I find quite interesting, and I'd like to have a little bit of understanding, and I hope you'll be able to provide. He said, pro-chancellors and vice-chancellors must demonstrate commitments to ending the ongoing strike. Now, here's what I find interesting. He said, as chairman of councils and senates, the highest policy and academic bodies in the system, you must consider it your paramount duty to promote policies and actions that will discourage industrial disputes in our campuses. So it raises a question in my mind. If this was a fresh call or something that pro-chancellors and vice-chancellors should have been doing hitherto, I'm just wondering how, the schools, the universities are governed by systems or some governance systems, yet they go to strike and are talking to the federal government. Are the governance systems in the universities powerless to even do anything about forestalling these strikes in the first place?
Thank you. I'm very happy you started with the minister. When he was a journalist, well, I didn't know him then, but somebody sent me one of his articles that supported ASUU against this issue of no work, no pay. But now I listened to him last week say they want to get paid for work they didn't do. I will not expect anybody who went to school to take that position. Now you are talking of governing council. Do they have autonomy? When I was realities, universities were given their money annually, and the council manages it. We're managing it. The vice chancellor, the bursar, the principal officers were discussing on the instructions of the coach chancellor. But now they pay our salary from ASUU or wherever they are APC things. I didn't feel happy, also many of my colleagues did not. You and all over the country, the ASUU body. We didn't feel it, but they forced it or not. So, talking about autonomy, people don't understand. They think autonomy is you have to go and generate your funds yourself. The pro-chancellor has no power over, even these days, employment of lecturers. We groom people, we do whatever they apply, and what we hear now is that the thing must pass through Abuja through 8 different directors before they are employed. In my department, every lecturer is doing the work of 4 lecturers. And that's what EAA means, and academic allowance. And they are saying that in next year's budget that they're going to do this. Nobody will take any government serious on promissory notes. They have access to money. Wherever they want to take it. TED fund is our creation. We told them that if you take 2% from the profits of the company, you'll be able to fund education. And what did they do at the end of the day? They hijacked it. Nigerians attending private schools, and they are using TED fund on only government-owned schools, as if the Nigerians in private schools should not have access to that money. I was bachelor of a private school, and there was something we didn't say. And they said that even we should even be contributing to TED fund. You have 2 twin brothers, one is in a private school, the other one is in a... I know you. If we had to pay school fees. So if you are to pay salary from school fees, no student will pay less than 1 million naira. So federal government is subsidizing heavily, and they are not doing that for students in private schools. And that's why their fees are exorbitant. And how many Nigerians can afford exorbitant fees? Not even professors.
Well, Prof, there's something you said earlier that I think, we might need to give a little attention to. You cited the 80s thereabout where universities could take care of issues on their own. At what point did that change? Because clearly the current system has not worked and is not working and is not likely to work. So at what point did we lose that, what you call, autonomy of the universities that brought us to where we are now? How do we reverse that trend?
It is a gradual thing. It's not, you can't pinpoint a point at which that change. The regime of Obasanjo started it. If you remember, Ali months ago, I was in my father here then. We were feeding was tripled in terms of the cost and everything. The Ali must go era. So it started gradually, and each successive government started building over the decay of the tertiary institutions. Projects that were approved under that regime, under Shagari regime, were cancelled in a jiffy by Buhari regime. About 10 projects were going on. Chief Simiadiba was appointed as then he reported. And we had this information that federal government has said, so that's another step. Then came the Obasanjo regime of 1999. It's true, he took steps, Abdulkadir Salam, what's his name? His predecessor, he took steps to increase our salary. If you add what we were earning before then, it's ridiculous. But I don't think I need to blame anybody for doing the obvious. To thank anybody for doing the obvious. Then later they started withdrawing autonomy gradually. So it's a gradual thing that successive governments have. And when this APC government came in and found that PDP did not honor the agreement, they started doing something, and we were very happy, only to discover that there's no difference between them and PDP. So it's a gradual thing, been going on. And something has to happen to stop this stress.
Well, so at the moment, Prof, when government says they can only afford 23.5% salary increase for all category of workforce in the university, except for the professorial cadre, who can enjoy 35% upwards. So how does that sound to you? Is that acceptable to lecturers, for instance?
As long as a professor earns less than a senator, earns less than a major in the army, it's not acceptable. I repeat, as long as a professor earns less than a senator or any member of the National Assembly, whether senator or friend or whatever, it's not acceptable. Well, look at it. Somebody says it's going to increase your salary, but it's going to put it in next year's budget. That 35% for professors, I really don't know why they're sending differential. It should be the same percentage all over. We all visit the same market and all that. Maybe they want to appeal to professors and so that we can persuade our junior ones to. No, nobody's going to do that. But even what they have promised, have they released it? You stop somebody. You stop somebody of his salaries because of a misconception, and you are now saying he wants double, more than double his salary, and you are now offering 35%. You have not even paid it. I hope their tactical committee will review that upwards. If they do it upwards and they pay our salaries without our. Those of us who are not in IPPIS receive salaries through that fraudulent IPPIS.
So
let them do it. If it's in my account, if the money is in our account, then we can persuade our younger colleagues to go back to work.
Oh dear. So what if government comes up and says, all right, in the interest of stability and peace, we'd like to rescind our decision concerning the no work, no pay. We'll pay all the backlog. Do you think the lecturers will go back to classrooms?
That is the least they should do. They will do it. And if they do it, then we reach a bridge, then let us start from there. If they do it, we have not achieved anything in what we asked for. What they do, that's the starting point. I'm not going to speak on behalf of every lecturer here, but if they do that, they are just trying to apologize, ask for forgiveness for starving us. And that's the thing. You know, some people have succumbed to hunger, they have gone back to work. And I don't see what the technologist is doing in the lab when we are not teaching what they have gone back to work, maybe because they feel whatever. But that's up to them, and I'm not blaming anybody for that. If government says that, that is a first step in the right direction. And when we get there, we'll know what to tell our colleagues. But that does not mean that we have won. And that does not mean that they have attended to our problem. As I said, we will not accept promised treatment. But if you pay me what you are owing me, then that's a different scenario. When they do that, then we will address it.
Prof, just before we go, at the end of the day, this is about students. So many of them, most certainly you have some information about what's happening to a sizable number of students, young people in the universities today, many of them literally disoriented. I don't even know how to put the question to you, but I'm just wondering what the thoughts of ASUU are on this issue of how this strike is impacting the students directly, both currently and in their near or far future.
I know a family, the father, the mother, they are both professors. The first two children are lecturers. The last two are students. So that's our entire family. People talk as if they think we don't have children in universities. All our children go to public universities. So you are now asking me to talk about the fate of students as if I don't have children, as if we don't have children in school. Virtually 90% of us, especially the middle age and young ones, have their children in the university. So it's not my responsibility to talk about that. It is the responsibility of the irresponsible government to address that issue so that they can go back to school. We cannot be held responsible for what the government is guilty of. We are also victims. When we don't teach, our children are also at school in our homes. People talk as if we don't have children in this school. It is the politicians that don't have children in Nigerian school. That's why they are taking this thing with levity. All their children are abroad, studying or in private universities. Go to private universities, Afe Babalola, the one owned by Atiku and all that. That's where their children are, if they're not abroad. So they're not affected. So please, nobody should blame lecturers for the plight of students who have been at home. Blame the government. What they have just done yesterday, they should have done right from the first week of our strike, and everything would have been resolved. We don't like the way we are on strike. We don't enjoy it.
We hope that at least now that, several committees are meeting, different groups are meeting, everyone looks forward to a time where it will all be resolved amicably, I dare say. But we have to thank you very much indeed for your perspective this morning, Professor Tola Badejo, former Vice Chancellor of Wesley University in Ondo State. And now back to the Obafemi Awolowo University Department of Zoology. Thank you, Prof, for your perspective this morning.
Thank you, my brother.
All right, we will be back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, Dr. Kenan also joins us now for this next bit. He is the CEO of Emprogate Limited, an investment advisory services, investment advisory consultant. He is. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Well, we have, now we're just trying to take a look at what the current situation is with the economy. Perhaps also trying to see what may likely happen in the days ahead, especially now that we're moving towards elections. So this is going to be about the importance of us as a country, as a people, making the right decisions. Because if we don't, you're about to show us the figures concerning what could happen if we don't. And so you've got what you refer to as what? Correlating prices and the circumstances at the moment. That's correlating the rising cost of living and the election consequences concerning the voters' choices in 2023.
Sure.
Must have been an interesting find for you.
Yes, good morning again. Thank you for inviting me. It's very thought-provoking to when you sit back and you review particularly what has happened in the last quarter of the year and how it has dramatically changed the lives of many Nigerians across different levels, from upper class to lower class. The cost of living is rising dramatically. Inflation has risen consecutively over the past 7 months. People's purchasing power has dropped. Disposable income has dropped. At the upper level, look at the cost of flights because of aviation gas oil. The business operating environment, look at the cost of diesel. Banks have even adjusted their closing times and actually have stopped some branches from operating at all and moved staff. Look at the cost of feeding, buying foodstuff. When you look at the statistics, the one that has moved, all of them are double-digit increases. So all of them are above 10%. The highest is Gary. It's bread and egg, over 34%. The lowest is Gary. So you find that people are not purchasing as much as they want, and many people are not doing 3 square meals. Again, you look at the situation with electronic payments.
Is that where you speak about the evidence of NIBSS data, where you talk about the value of e-bills payment?
Sure. I mean, most of 2018, the value of bills and the number of transactions, e-bill transactions, both rise simultaneously. So when the number of transactions rise, the value of the transactions also rise, number and value. In this particular instance, particularly quarter 2, what you have discovered from NIBSS reports is that electronic payments, the transactions have risen, value, but the number of transactions, quantity, has dropped. So a lot of people are choosing what they want to do in terms of utilities. When you come to consider pay TV, the DSTVs and Go TVs, people are subscribing less because many of them have increased their rates. You look at the cost of power. The cost of power has increased. So people are using less power. And it's also helped by the fact that the weather is cold. So at night, most people switch off their power or to conserve. So the purchasing power of the Naira has dropped because of inflation. At the same time, the price of utilities have gone up. The price of food items have gone up. And there are other external factors that have affected the price of food items as well. Remember how many farmers, 40-something farmers killed in the farm by Boko Haram the other time? So a lot of farming activities have dropped. With the increase in the price of diesel and petrol, the cost of transporting food from the agricultural farms has increased. So all these in the value chain make things get higher.
Okay, so that's where you speak about inflation trend from the MBS. So you look at the food inflation, the core inflation. So these are the areas where you highlight some of these challenges.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, what does it mean in real terms? Drop in disposable income, change in Nigerians' choices of what they want. Food comes first. Utilities will always take the back seat. because you can survive without some of the utilities. And then people are groaning under high transport costs. And the group general manager of NNPC just announced 48 hours ago that the price of fuel could rise to 460.
Maybe you should break it down for us. Tell us, why are rates rising?
The rates are rising. The inflation rates is exacerbated by rising commodity prices worldwide, the price of fuel, and so many other causes. Again, the war in Ukraine is part of it, because it's affecting. You remember that the chairman of the African Union went to see the president of Russia over grains export. The United Nations Secretary General had to go to see the president of Ukraine and the president of Russia over the issue of allowing export of grains to be unimpeded from Russia, from Ukraine by Russian forces. So that shows us how critical Ukraine is to the global agricultural ecosystem. Now you come back home, the volatility of the naira to the dollar is also affecting a lot of things, particularly the purchasing power of Nigerians. Remember, in 2020, Nigeria was declared the poverty capital of the world. Highest number of out-of-school children, highest number of IDP camps, internally displaced camps, highest number of internally displaced persons in the world. That situation has not improved. It's actually getting worse. And you can see the federal government having set up the Northeast Development Commission to address that matter with a master plan, I think 50 billion take-off capital. They're trying to address those issues. So the poverty index is getting worse. And when you look at analysis from the World Bank, the IMF, the AFDB, Afrexim Bank, the figures are not good for the country.
So
we have an election coming up.
Yeah. Just before we go on, can I just ask you this? I thought that data is supposed to guide decision making.
Yes.
And the NBS has been releasing these data over the years. I mean, year on year, as you say in economics. How come these, or rather, in what ways have the data that been released and the ones that you have given, you're here to give to us, in what ways have they affected any decision creditably, or in any way that has influenced any progress in our decision making?
Well, the most evident response to NBS statistics, the immediate one that is visible to the public, is the finance bill that comes up annually every December. Because the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning sits with her team and the economic management team. They discuss these statistics and other reports from other private sector bodies, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, the NESG and co. And then they come to decisions. So where fiscal policy interventions will help to ameliorate some of the difficult economic situations, socio-economic situations, as per NBS data, then they reflect that with fiscal policy interventions in the finance bill. Right now, they're having such considerations. So the Fiscal Policy Committee of the Federal Ministry of Finance does some of that. Again, if I may say, I noticed 48 hours ago, the federal government launched a poverty reduction initiative, and they've been doing some. So there's a new one launched 48 hours ago. They call it GEEP, by the Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, giving loans of between 50,000 and 300,000 to the most downtrodden, because they see the importance of, and in particular, the creation of that ministry. The establishment of that ministry is critical. I think it's a response to the data and that report about Nigeria being poverty capital of the world. So they have been doing a lot of interventions, poverty reduction interventions.
How that has affected anything, Dr.
Now, that statistically,
just a second,
we have not been told. We don't have any information from MBS how the interventions have impacted.
Just 1 second. Slide 7 that what you have prepared for us. You said, and Chamberlain asked this question the other time. I asked that question against that backdrop of that slide, that there is food inflation rate that MBS says the rise is driven by increases in prices of certain specifics. And then there is core inflation rate, and which is also driven by increases in prices of, energy, product, and all of that. So how have those decisions affected these figures, these findings of NBS?
Well, NBS will have to tell us. Nobody has done, as far as I know, has done a forensic analysis yet, because it's actually, the Q2 report was released barely a week ago. So I'm sure the analysis are being done at the moment. But you point to something important. Look at the price of fuels. Cooking gas, it went up over 74%. Diesel, over 208%. Petrol. So all these have impact in the entire economy. But
Mr. Nwosu, these increases regardless, the federal government has had a comprehensive social investment program, particularly since 2015. If you look at the trader money, if you look at all of those other empowerment programs under its social investment program, if you look at the school feeding program for which caterers were empowered. Exactly. So regardless of these increases, shouldn't the outcomes have be significantly reduced compared with what we have today, these rates and the intense poverty across the land?
Well, you're right. I know that the Vice President of Nigeria, at the time they did the National Egg Program, giving schools egg, made lofty references to the impact of the federal government's social investment programs, for which there's actually a special advisor who's a dedicated desk officer for that, and is a cabinet rank member, in addition to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. So the statistics of that were not released, but the Vice President made the claim that it has impacted and it's helped to reduce poverty and helped to ameliorate the hunger in the country. Fine. However, like I said, a forensic analysis will need to be done. The Presidential Economic Management Team, that's really where what their work is. So working closely with the National Bureau of Statistics.
So does it then mean that those details we're not able to reconcile them with the results we see? Because when you talk about details of NBS selected food price watch reports, does it mean that they don't reflect in these details which you highlight here?
Yes. Now, let me make this assumption. Before Q2, the impact of some of these interventions must have been felt at some levels of society. But remember, when I started speaking, I said a lot happened in Q2 2022. It was in that period that we saw the skyrocketing of all these prices, both the cost of food, the cost of fuels. Within that period, we saw the rise in the more volatility of the naira. We saw the rise in the monetary policy rate, the rise in the inflation rates, 19.64%, highest in 17 years since 2005. So Q2 recorded a lot of activity. Same thing, the rise in petrol prices, diesel prices. So whatever gains may have been recorded from those interventions are now eroded. And Nigerians are getting more desperate. And that is why I was particularly happy with the Honorable Minister of Communication and Digital Technology. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? Yeah. He announced he did not support the additional tax that was going to be placed on telecommunication calls. For God's sake, you need to make a lot of calls. People keep calling, asking for help, left, right, and center. And you want to add to it. And he said no. And then the committee is set up to do the review. It was dead on arrival. Now, note something important. In Q2, there was a sharp rise. I didn't mention that in my presentation, but as I will speak to it, there was a very sharp rise in the value and quantity of diaspora remittances to Nigeria, from Nigerians overseas into the country, much sharper than we have seen in several quarters going back. Because there are a lot of more requests from Nigerians here for help from their families overseas.
What? Why? Leveraging on the calls?
No, not leveraging on the calls.
Why was
necessarily. Because things are more difficult here. So they're asking for more help. So there's a lot more money coming from overseas. Because with the volatility of the naira, you change $1, you have the black market somewhere or something.
I hope they're not about to make it more difficult, so there are more resources.
That's what I cannot project. So that's very instructive, and I hope the economic managers of the country are looking at that, because the Nigerians in the diaspora are picking a lot more interest in what's happening in our country. And they are shining out there. Look at the Minister of Secretary of State for Trade in the UK announced yesterday, a Nigerian lady who relocated from this country about 15 years ago. So Nigerians are doing quite well there and now helping with what's happening back home. And that's why when you link it to the elections that are coming up.
That leads you to page 11 of what you talk about, the clear and present danger.
Correct.
Is that it?
Clear and present danger. How many months away are the elections? 6 February is presidential. It's a series of elections. I'm not talking about only the presidential. One of the key drivers of electoral malpractice is poverty. And a key electoral malpractice is voter buying and voter selling. Vote buying and vote selling. INEC has officially admitted it is a major problem. And they have mentioned it, that it occurred at ASUU election, at the Ekiti election. Prices ranging to different levels. So, hunger is a driver for a voter to sway his attention or his vote. Now, what makes it worse is that there's voter apathy. INEC had announced in February last year that the average percentage of voters out of the total number of registered voters in this country is about 35, between 30 and 35%.
Speak to this.
Yes, research studies have established direct correlation between income, voter apathy, and voter decision. So in an environment of pervasive, the word is, that's adjective, pervasive poverty, vote buying and selling will easily thrive. So that's what I'm saying. Now, voter registration figures are there. But the number of people that vote is between 30 and 35, 36%. Ekiti election, or State election, recorded about the same percentage. And I understand that Anambra was even worse. It was about 10.38%, but viewed largely because of the insecurity in the country. So when somebody is not even interested in voting because they believe their votes will not count.
And you don't think this renaissance among the youths, you know, in terms of politics, will not temper vote buying in 2023? It
could temper vote buying. And again, it's because of what? Response to the poverty situation. We're not happy with this. We want to change the situation. So who are the candidates that will give us the best value proposition? Those are the people who are going to vote. So now we want to get... Now, what they are doing is those who are not registered, that's voter apathy, those who are not registered are now registering. Now, that's layer 2. Layer 1 is those who have been registered all the time have not been coming out to vote. So there's voter apathy.
And I see you speak about the consequences, which is, if you look at, you tag the consequences of anticipated poverty-induced vote buying and selling.
Correct. So, if somebody is in the house and is not interested in voting, is not interested in even registering, and you come to him and you offer him, you make him an offer, I will give you so amount so that you can be eaten. I want you to go and register. You're going to vote for my party. You encourage him. That's an incentive. He registers. On the voting day, he doesn't want to come out to vote. My vote is not going to count. You say, no, your vote will count. I'm going to induce you. The man is hungry, so he's looking at the immediate gain. He doesn't want to know whether the person will deliver good governance or not. So you see the danger of poverty. So this is why I'm saying the federal government needs to do something about it. Not just the federal government, all stakeholders. You can see the CSOs, the political parties, the federal government, development partners. We need to come together. There has to be active too. First of all, there has to be more strategic poverty reduction initiatives. and fiscal policy interventions, in other words, governance interventions, to reduce the rising poverty.
How can that change within the few months that we have on our hands?
Well,
look at this. I just saw something now. If my
just move to page 15. That's what the consequences are.
One of the consequences, I mean, you just listed a number of people now. You've listed, CSOs, development partners, and the rest of them.
The government, yes. And
now,
political parties.
the question that comes to my mind, I mean, look at this: unemployment, illiteracy, and all of that. They are not just at some utopian federal government level. They are in the states. They're at the local government levels as well.
Of course.
What is the intervention that the people themselves can have among themselves? Because unless we as a people have a united, decision that we want to change things, aping from the question Bukola asked the other time, things may not necessarily change. You all already gave the stats of 35% average voter participation in every general election. Exactly. So with all of these and the interventions of the state and all of those things, what's our task here, really?
Thank you very much. It's a heavy one. What our task is? Well, number one, stakeholder engagement. It's important that the federal government should lead, perhaps with the Nigerian Governors Forum, from the public side. And then the social intervention chief executives should lead a major stakeholder engagement on how do we tackle this clear and present danger in the short term, because it's a short term from now to the elections. So that should be a starting step. Development partners should give us their own expert advice, technical support, based on because this is not the first time. What is happening here has happened in many other countries, Somalia, Eritrea, and all, and India, Pakistan. Two, there has to be major sensitization programs by CSOs in particular, that your vote counts. Go out and register, and don't sell your votes.
Pardon me. Jump to page 16. Now, all of what you're saying now shows us the consequences of what could happen if we don't get it right. So can we look at that page 16 so that you can just break it down, and then, because, I mean, relating with those figures could just give us at least that proper perspective in terms of, wait a minute, so the figures don't lie, I mean, you say. But I see you say here that what could happen on the economy front if voters elect suboptimal governance in 2023? So inflation rate, 19.64%, you say.
Exactly. Major consequences. If there's widespread voter buying and voter selling, and you don't get the right people in governance, the impact of voter buying and vote buying and vote selling. First, you have a suboptimal government, so there will be under-governance. Secondly, there won't be sufficient accountability in government, because whoever gets in at whatever level, federal, state, local, will not feel accountable because he or she bought their votes.
Money on votes.
And thirdly, the poverty cycle continues. These are the key impacts. So poverty leads to vote buying and vote selling, and then leads to these three things I've just mentioned. So look at the current statistics. What is the current inflation rate? I've mentioned 19.64%. Food inflation rate, about 22.02%. You look at the monetary policy
and you also talk about exchange rate.
The exchange rate,
25 naira.
It's not steady, but that's the official rate. In the black market, it's over 700 naira for the dollar.
So what's going to happen to that if we elect suboptimal government?
If they don't manage the economy well, and monetary policy is not right, Nigeria could go above 1,000. Purchasing power drops, disposable income drops, and if the prices of fuel and food keep rising, crazy. Our debt to GDP ratio, you see the statistics there, it's dangerous. And the World Bank the IMF has said that Nigeria, over the next 5 years, 2027, that our debt to GDP ratio may rise to 44%.
Because even though...
because 2027 is when the new president elected in 2023 will be finishing his first term. So IMF is saying The debt to GDP ratio could rise to 44%. It's there, it's online. It's not my figure. So we should be careful. And the DMO had released the figures and said, for now the debt is sustainable, but we're running a deficit budget. So one of the consequences, when I say the consequences of inaction, if you don't get in the government that is right, you're going to have these issues.
Okay.
So everybody decide what you want.
All right. Okay, Mark, we have some questions for you as well.
Thank you.
I have been thinking of how best to couch this question, because it would seem that a number of parties are beginning to get wise. And maybe it's wise in a negative way. You've talked about how NGOs have, or CSOs have, a job of work on their hands, perhaps in addition to INEC, to educate particularly rural communities about the importance of their vote and telling them that they should come out and that their votes will count. But that they need to be wary of those who would seek to buy their votes. Now, from the experience that we have seen, since when the term in recent times, I mean, vote buying is nothing new in Nigeria's political history, if we're to read through the books. But in recent times, we do know when we started hearing the term stomach infrastructure. And when that term was introduced, or since when that term has been introduced, it's been a bit difficult to try and get the parties, because it would seem that one party got his nose particularly bloodily bruised in that particular elections where we heard stomach infrastructure. And since that time, it would seem that almost all the parties, especially the two major parties, have been at the front burner of buying votes. If you look at the off-season elections that have been conducted. So when you tell citizens to vote right, and maybe for some of the parties, they're not going to be buying the vote on the day of the election. Some of them might even try to buy it before the elections. I mean, by some of the programs that they might have, you know, I do not know if that will qualify in your books as well as buying vote, empowerment programs, so to speak. How would you say that voters should analyze? How would they be able to tell the parties, the people that they think will have their best interest at heart, in spite of all of because some people will say they are politicians, they'll do anything to see how they can get the votes. If that's what the people want, that's what they're going to do. So how would you say that they should analyze what each party is bringing and how to look past whatever it is that they're doing to see, you know, who would really be able to deliver when they get into office?
I like your last words. Who will deliver when they get into office? Two things come straight to mind in response to your observations and your question. The first is that there is a rising trend from research and observation that voters are focusing more on the individual, not necessarily the party. That is what we see. So if one party that may be unpopular in some parts of the country, but presents a candidate that they believe could deliver, because there is, among every 12, there's one Judas. Everybody cannot be Judas. They will vote for the person. Secondly, you ask, how can the voters make their decision? In my presentation, I had raised that point, and what I said was, okay, maybe we should have a template to say what are the minimum we expect from candidates. The question then is, what template will this be? The rising food prices is one of the benchmarks, template of benchmarks. Who is going to reduce the cost of food? Another is who is going to reduce the cost of fuels. And then I made a recommendation. Some people may debate it or say otherwise. The National Development Plan of Nigeria, 2021 to 2025, is a 5-year medium-term development plan for the country. And it was prepared by technocrats, not politicians, selected across country, across economic sectors. And they made projections for the development of different aspects of the economy. It's a complete pyramid approach. So they set targets. What should be that the unemployment rate, which is currently 33% by MBS statistics, within the next 5 years should be reduced by 10%, for instance. that we should have up to 10,000 megawatts generated by 2025. So they set a number of targets for 2025. What should be the inflation rate should be single digit by 2025 or before then. So the number of parameters that they outlined, and the GDP should be grown to, is it 44 trillion or so? No, not the GDP rate. Okay, the GDP rate was added, what it should rise to. The contributions of sports and the creative sector and ICT should increase their percentage contribution to GDP. So some of those benchmarks outlined in the National Development Plan could also be benchmarks that voters at different levels could utilize to say, hey, this is what the technocrats prepared. This candidate, how do you think you can be able to achieve this? Tell us your strategies. You, how do you think? And then whoever says the best wins. That's partly what we see when the British have their debates. All the candidates are standing for prime minister, and they speak to the benchmarks and how you want to deliver. Here we also do similar debates, so let's see how that's going to go. So let's watch.
We'll like to hear them speak to the benchmarks. Yeah, we'll be good to see them speak to those benchmarks and speak to some of those economic indices and what they want to do, what policies they want to bring to bear to ensure that we don't go south, as it were. So
policy interventions, legislative interventions, social interventions, political interventions, all this different strata, speak to them. And like I said, because the National Development Plan was developed by technocrats, not politicians, it's a document that outlines a vision for the first term of the president. It's 2021 to 2025. So his term doesn't end 25, it ends 27, but at least 23 to 24 is 1 year, 24 to 25 is second. So in 2 years, you will know a government that is serious. So whoever, even at the state levels, because the entire projections also go to subnationals. If the candidate does not tell you how you can do it best, you don't vote for him. So don't do the stomach infrastructure as the basis for voting.
Good place to anchor. We'll keep tabs on that one and hold them to account with those circumstances and those figures. Thank you very much indeed. This is the first of many to come. Dr. Ken Awosu, CEO, Emprigate Limited, an investment consultant. We are back in a moment. Stay with us. Sunrise today, Mr. Tunde Bankantini joins us next. He is an APC chieftain and also the spokesman concerned Lagosians. Good morning. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
I wonder why Lagosians are concerned at the moment because, first of all, tell us, what brought about concerned Lagosians in the first place?
It has always been there.
Oh, okay.
It is not something new. And if you know the spirit of Lagos, Lagos is for all. Everybody could call themselves a Lagosian for commercial reason, right, for political reason, and those who as well who are the indigenous of Lagos as well.
Okay.
So we all stakeholders in Lagos. So
at the moment now, it appears as though there will be more cause for concern because today we understand that, some reports indicate that they say Tinubu's loyalists want the APC chairman removed before campaigns. So one wonders, what's going on? Is all well within the party?
Well, I don't think so, to be sincere. I have to be honest with you. Are you talking about the national chairman or the state chairman of the party?
This is national.
This is national.
Is there something going on with the state as well?
Well, you could never tell. You could never tell, And that is why when I talk about concerned Lagosians, we are focused on Lagos. And what we see now, our candidates now, everything is campaigning on is Lagos. As if in the last 100 years, Lagos has seen nothing like him. But we, as Lagosians, whether indigene or non-indigene of Lagos, we as Lagosians, we need to set the record straight. I'm almost 60 years old, grew up on the island. I don't remember a road on the island that was not tarred. I want anybody to challenge me to that. I don't remember a road on Lagos Island that was not tarred. Is it Tokumbo? Is it Bangboshe? Is it Olusi? Is it Glover? Is it Bosh? They'll tell me. Is it Tinubu? Tell me the road in Lagos. But the point is that the politics they are playing now gives us a lot of concern.
What is the politics they're playing now?
The politics that Lagos was developed by Tinubu, who happens to be the candidate of my party. That is unacceptable.
Do you deny that he's the father of modern Lagos, as some members of your party
I'm not denying it. It is not so.
Presenting him.
It is not so. I believe you've been in Lagos for at least more than 25 years, meaning from 1999. Lagos has always been, if you call New York, you call Paris, you call London, you call Lagos. Lagos has been there. The school he went to in Lagos, did he build it? Where he was born, did he build the hospital? So let us be clear about politics here. It's our own heritage. It's our own heritage. That's how our pedigree comes from there. So let nobody ride a roughshod on our back about who developed Lagos.
So what is going on here? I mean, people thought that every APC member in Lagos are on the same page on this campaign, but it appears not.
You see, on the same page for the candidate as it is now. But if we start bringing lies, as that misrepresentation, Jakande was in government for 4 years and 2 or 3 months. The records are there. You know what he did? Shagari was the same time. There's a Shagari estate in Ipaja. Jakande built his own, the federal government built his own through Abdosumu there. They don't call it Jakande estate.
So what's the issue that concerned Lagosians are having now? Is it that these things didn't happen, or the claims that what exactly is the objective? Just a second. What exactly is the objective of this comments that you are making? Is it to discredit the candidate or to discredit the campaign? No. Exactly. I just want to understand.
Very good question. We are not discrediting the candidate or the campaign. What we are trying to do is to put the record straight out there. Do you understand me? Bola Tinubu Asiwaju was governor 1999 to 2007. It's clear, right? Am I correct, Mr.
Officially,
am I correct?
It's clear to
that is it. BRF was 2007 to 15. Ambode was 15 to 2019. So let us don't convince our children for the sake of history to misrepresent. What was done in that time, in that frame of time, in 8 years? Bola Johnson did 9 years as a military governor. Jakande did 4 years. Then we have the administrator within those places. So if you now come out and tell me now that is it LASU that he built, is it UNILAG that he built, is it ASUU that they built, is it ASUU that they built?
Okay, well, this is literally just laying the foundation. Let's go to Abuja. What do you think, Chamber? Okay, let's just go to Abuja. I believe that Maure has another guest waiting.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have with us Mr. Wole Badmus, who is the Executive Director, Southwest Grand Alliance for Tinubu Shetima 2023. He joins us here in Abuja studios. Well, you have heard Mr. Tunde Bank Anthony right there in Lagos. He is an APC chieftain, and he certainly should know what he's speaking about. He's speaking from Lagos, where he is saying he is concerned. I'm wondering, how are you looking at this? Are members of your party introducing lies into the campaign?
Thank you, Mope. Well, first and foremost, I want to say with all sense of humility that and sense of modesty that the assertion made by the last speaker, most of them, are grossly flawed on the premise that nobody is claiming that Tinubu is the founder of Lagos. Nobody is saying that Tinubu is the person that discovered Lagos. What we are saying is that Tinubu became governor at a time Lagos was at the brink of collapse. He became governor at a time that the infrastructural decay in Lagos was unprecedented. I will want my friend in Lagos, my brother in Lagos, not to be too economical with the truth by telling us the infrastructural state of Lagos as at 1999, when Tinubu, was elected as when Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was elected as the governor of Lagos State, and to even show the extent of the decay in Lagos, the chaotic situation. It warranted the federal government of Nigeria, seeing the chaotic situation that Lagos was in, they moved the federal capital away from Lagos to Abuja, which is to tell you that Lagos was already congested. Lagos was at the brink of collapse. I want to tell him that he is saying he's from Lagos Island. Of course, I'm not doubting that. But can he pass through Idumota, with ease, the way he's doing now? Can he pass through Oshodi, the way he's doing now? Can he transcend, can he, navigate Lagos freely and easily, the way it is now? We are not saying that Tinubu brought Lagos. What we are saying is that Tinubu transformed Lagos, and people must face that reality. We are talking of facts, not mundane or, being placed on pedestal, sentimental issues. This is beyond politics. The facts are there. IGR of 600 million naira per month increased to as much as $15 billion per month during Tinubu's era. And when you are talking of Ambode, Fashola, Sanwo-Olu, all these are products of Tinubu's school of thought. As at 1999, Tinubu has a 25-year development plan, both in the short term, medium term, and long term, which all successive governors of Lagos State are working on. Do you know that the blue light train and the red light train that people are talking about now, they are in the blueprints that Tinubu made as at 1999?
Some people will say that that might not exactly be correct, because we understand that Governor Jakonde had tried to do that in his own time, and it was this current president who cancelled it when he was military administrator. Yes, the military administration of that time that took over cancelled it, but it was not as elaborate as the red line being introduced by Governor in the blueprint now that Governor Sanwo-Olu is starting, which is taking off from the Ishaga end now to link up Marina. The blue light rain is from Marina to Badagry. So you can see that the whole of Lagos is now connected through rail, which will go a long way in easing the transport congestion. When you talk about modern Lagos, some people would, they would be finding it very difficult to understand where precisely you're talking about. Yes, maybe VI, Lekki. But if you were to go from, say, Mile 2 down towards Okoko or Jo, all of those areas, there is nothing modern about those places. Well, maybe you are not in Lagos. Maybe the people are talking that Lagos is not modern. They are not, using the experience of pre-1999. That is the yardstick. We are talking of course, Calabar had been the federal capital of Nigeria before. Lokoja had been the federal capital of Nigeria before. And the Lagos we are talking about, that is federal capital, is only Lagos as a unit. That is Old Lagos Island and Old Lagos Mainland, comprising of Apapa, Victoria Island, Apapa, Lagos Mainland, Surulere, and Etiosa. Part of Etiosa, not even all. The other part were part of Western region. It was the administration of Donny Mobaladi Johnson that all these places were merged to Lagos. If you look at all those Okoko, Masa, they are inhabitable before. We have to be sincere with ourselves. They are inhabitable before. It takes somebody, they are described as slump. All the little here and here development you are seeing, they are manifestation of Asiwaju's commitment to long-term development of Lagos, which is even sustainable by successful governors. Don't you rubbish whatever it is. I mean, so indeed, when democracy started in 1999, yes, there must have been, some work going on, with the democratic government that was introduced. But then, don't you rubbish all of the achievements of his predecessors, of his predecessors and his successors when you say, yes, oh, Tinubu developed, or he is the father of modern Lagos? No, don't get it twisted. That give credit to whom it is due. That is not to take away the glory or what the achievement of what other governors have done. What we are saying is that you cannot take away, because for political reason, you cannot take away or change
Tinubu's political currency in Lagos development. Of course, Jakonde introduced free education, Jakonde school, estates, housing estate, and everything. But we are saying that Tinubu equally turned natural disaster into wealth with the Eco-Atlantic city, which was a surge. You know, prior to his government, it was a surge. It was a climatic chaos. Annually, my brother in Lagos should attest to that. He's staying in Lagos. You cannot pass through that Babish road. It's terrible.
Let us see how he responds to that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Badmos. And most of your claims are very mundane when it comes to Lagos. I mean, to be very clear with you, you are speaking about Lagos that Lagos was in chaos. Lagos pre-1999, I don't know what you're talking about. In 1998, you came back to Lagos. Bola Tinubu came to Lagos in 1998, right? The road he was living on Sunday Adigun was a third road. The schools were there. Clearly, Mariwa, a military governor that he succeeded, did some good jobs in Lagos. You are talking about IGR. Where's the IGR? Please, I don't want us to take this thing. I'm APC, but what I'm telling you is very clear. Don't misrepresent Lagos, right? That British Lagos was in chaos. That was why that was people like you made. This guy came to Lagos, Shetima, saying that when Bola Tinubu came to Lagos as governor, Lagos had only one ambulance. What a joke of a comment. Lagos had one ambulance. The IGR of Lagos, as you guys claimed, is how many billion? Where is it? Is it the schools we see? Is it the hospital we see? Where are the housing estates? We are talking about metro line. This metro line we are talking about now, I'm glad Makwe took you back to Jakonde. And it has been going on for long. And every government, if you had 8 years to be in power, you must be able to leave your print in that 8 years. 8 years is enough. We saw what Jakonde did in 4 years. Mobalaji Johnson was a military governor. We saw what he did in 9 years. There was a school in every region of Lagos. Government College Lagos, Ikorodu, Ekpe, Badagry. We saw it. So if you want to campaign for Bola Tinubu only based on Lagos achievement, you have to be very objective and be factual about it, right? And be factual about it. It's not about you trying to make other governors look less, that he had a 25-year plan. 25 years will end next year now, right? 25 years will be over by next year. So what are we talking about? Will Lagos be over by next year? If you look back at Lagos, you look at the missionaries in Lagos, the Anglicans, the Methodists, the Ansarudin, the Ahmadiyya, who had schools on ground? Who had schools on ground? Who had the basic things for the poor people on ground?
So when you say other governors, does this concern former Governor Ambode?
Of course, yes.
How?
I read something not too long ago that the chairman of party in Lagos, Balogun, said Ambode did not follow the blueprint of Lagos. And I'm asking, what is the blueprint of Lagos? I've said that, I asked this question a few years ago. It should be online, right? It should be online for people to see. His blueprint of Lagos, what BRF did, clearly, Lagos Homes, the blue line, right? The housing estate, the coaches, all these things, Ambode came in and followed up on them and completed them. I can even tell you the Okota Amuwo Road, and Ike House, the one in Ikeja, that's my great grandmother, the Gondo House, the Obele, the Surulere State housing estate, even in the Blue Rail, Ambode paid 22 billion was paid by Ambode's government. So
why was he removed then? Why did they let him continue?
You were here when the primary was held in Lagos. Clement Ebri was in Lagos. He said it loud and clear that there was no primaries, but he later turned around and said, okay, let's accept it. And Ambode was a loyal, faithful party man, and he stood by it, he accepted it. And he's never made a comment since that day. But people are insinuating so many things about, you remember very well the way and manner they attacked BRF as well, when they left of it. It is their trading mark, but the point is that the people that succeeded Asiwaju, BRF, succeeded him, his 8 years was more visible than Bola Tinubu's 8 years. Right?
Mr. Bankanthony,
yes.
It's a bit confusing. You are an APC chieftain.
I am, yes. And I'm a negotiator first.
Your point is clear.
Yes.
But what message are you now passing across to APC members?
Thank you very much.
Are you saying that you're not in support of the Tinubu-Shettima candidacy in the 2023 presidential election?
Yeah. No. What I'm saying to my fellow APC members is that if all you want to campaign about Asiwaju for president is Lagos, be factual about it. Do you understand me?
If you would, you've said that quite a few times.
Of course, that is the bottom line.
Now, laying the facts.
Yes.
Clearly, one of the things that anyone would want to campaign for your candidate about would probably be, okay, he was governor, so he understands governance.
That's right.
So if you would use that to campaign, what are the things you would be saying?
He was a governor for 8 years. He did his bit in Lagos, but he's not the prime founder of Lagos. He has been a corporate world. Right, that's why I think he built his successor. But you cannot claim glory for what they did. You cannot claim glory for what they did. It's not possible.
How about the 25-year plan that Malkwe asked, the other time?
I mean, 25-year plan.
Because I've read an interview that even the vice president was in the cabinet of the Tinubu government at the time, and he also said he was part of the people who came up with that plan under that government.
Does that plan include Oshodi? Does that plan include Ayinke House? Does that plan include Lagos homes? You see, the point is that we have to be clear. These plans, let them lay it out. It should be, I've left to Lagosians to see maybe online or whatever. So let us know by next year, 25 years will be over. So what is the next thing? Like when PDP said they ruled for 60 years.
You were debunking the story that former Governor Ambode did not follow the blueprint.
Yes.
Is that part of the bone of contention here? Are you pro Ambode? Because the story is out there that the candidate has not forgiven Ambode for whatever it is that led to their fallout.
Which candidate?
Former governor, no, the candidate of your party, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu.
He has not forgiven Ambode.
Yes. So is Ambode part of the bone of contention here that has, thrown up the position of the concerned Lagosians?
No, you see, the point is that I'm even surprised that you said Tinubu has not forgiven Ambode. It should be the other way around. It should be the other way around, that Ambode has not forgiven Tinubu. So saying that Tinubu has not forgiven Ambode, on what basis is that? Is he on poor performance? On what? You see that he did not do well as a governor of Lagos State, or when he was even an accountant of Lagos State, that Tinubu so much sang his praises as what he did during the fracas with OBJ. So for me, it's been more or less that a performing governor was yanked off for no reason, for personal reasons.
So are you speaking for former Governor Ambode?
No. I'm just answering your question. That I don't know where that is coming from. That, but Tinubu has not forgiven Ambode. For what? If you can tell me, maybe you want to enlighten me. Since Ambode left office, he has not said a word against Bola Tinubu. All he has said is that, you know something, please go and register and get your PVC. That was all he has said. All those things in social media, there was nobody who could tell you that Ambode sat down with me and said this to me. Let's get that clear. He's still an APC member. He's still loyal to APC.
He's not leaving the party.
He's not leaving the party. As I speak to you today, I will tell you he's still an APC member.
Is he going to support the candidate?
Well, you see,
he's not the one sponsoring the factional APC group in Lagos.
Excuse me. This has been for a factional. He was factional. I'm not a factional member of APC. I'm talking for the concerned Lagosians.
Yeah, so wait, is he going to support the presidential candidate of the APC? Former Governor Ambode?
I don't see why not. I don't see why not. But the point is that...
But that's not a categorical answer. You're not sure.
About what?
You say, I don't see why not.
As I sit down here now, if I tell you I'm going to vote for you, I may change my mind tomorrow. Period.
All right. Well, Mr. Badmus, he says that, look, he's not against the candidature of both Bola Tinubu and Shettima, but he just wants it to be based on fact. Is there anything wrong with that?
First and foremost, I want to tell you that my big brother that is seated there with you is not being sincere. And I want him to be bold enough and come out in the open and tell the whole world that, well, for certain reason and so reason, I'm not supporting the candidature of Tinubu Shetima for president. You cannot be saying you are supporting the candidature of a person, and at the same time, you are taking away the glory, the score point, the scorecard of that person, in the public. Of course, we know the intra-party politics that is going on here and there, but that is by the way. Let's come to the issues on the table. Number one.
But if they, just before you go into the issues, but what if some of them are truly based on untruths? Because there have been reason for, yes, if they're based on, I'm reluctant to call them lies. Let me use the word exaggeration.
As Asiwaju's achievement.
Oh, yes. If they're based on exaggeration, shouldn't those exaggerations be called out? For instance, you just said that Asiwaju increased Lagos's IGL to 15 billion per month. What we see here is that there was a monthly, when he finally left office, the figure of Lagos's IGL rose to 6.9 billion per month. Yes. Yeah, so 7 billion. 7 billion. So when you say 15 billion,
that's I mixed it up.
Isn't that incorrect?
I agreed. No, that I agreed, and it's pardonable. That's why it's pardonable, because there's a continuum. That is why you have to give it to Asiwaju. There's a continuum in government in Lagos State. Asiwaju left it as 6.9. It was Fashola that left it at, I think, 15 or 17 billion. But that cannot take away, I still repeat, the gains, the unprecedented monumental transformation recorded in Lagos. Nobody is saying that Jakonde has not tried, for God's sake. Nobody is saying that, what's his name, Marwa has not tried. Nobody is saying predecessors of Asiwaju Tinubu have not tried. But what we are saying is that whether naysayers like it or not, Asiwaju's historical position in the transformation of Lagos, nobody can erase it. Politics or no politics.
Are you not concerned? I mean, if this is already happening within the ranks of your party, I mean, that, you have somebody who is bold enough to come out and say, look, nobody should come and pull the wool over our eyes. This is not the founder of Lagos. It's not the father of modern Lagos, as they'd like us to believe. And the person is within your party. It speaks to more that is happening within your party. Aren't you concerned about it?
Well, one should be concerned, but it's not limited to our party. And one should, even thank God that it's limited to, all this micro level. Cannot say the same thing of rival party like PDP.
You say micro level?
Yes, it's micro level in Lagos.
Lagos is the base of your candidate.
This is just an individual. This is just what I'm telling you, Mape. This is not an individual. It's not a party functionary. He's not holding any executive position in the party.
Do you know how many people he has the power to influence?
Anybody can claim he has power over so many. I can claim I have 3 million followers. You have to show it on the field. You have to show your electoral value. We are talking of the PDP as Wike with a huge electoral value that is already giving problem. Otom, Seyi Makinde, that is not the same with our party. Democracy, you disagree to agree. It is bound to happen. I'm quite sure if this my brother is called, maybe certain things are not open to him. If he's called and he's seated down on a round table by the people that matters, maybe he has not been communicated well enough. You can pardon him for that.
Okay, so quickly go to the issues which you wanted to raise.
The point I want to raise is that it is simple logic. It is not rocket science. You cannot give what you don't have. The managerial acumen, the technical know-how of Asiwaju is second to none among all the presidential candidates.
And you think that he still has what he had in 1999?
Of course.
You don't think that age would be telling by now?
Age like how? You just see the way.
I know how old I was in 1999. I knew where I was in 1999. And I know how old I am now.
Has it taken away from your mental capability? No, it does not. No, my sister, let us be sincere with ourselves. This is a person, you will see the way he marshaled the APC primary. You will know that the intellect is still there. He's still able to gather brains, the right brains across the country.
Okay, let's flip this to Lagos quickly.
Well, Mark, thank you very much. I'm not doubting Asiwaju is a resource manager. He's someone that is very resourceful. He has the ability to bring people together to get results. But this guy is missing something clearly there, right? He said it's micro. Did he say micro or macro? But the point I'm telling you is that is not the point I'm talking to you about. I'm talking to you about misrepresentation, right? Misrepresentation. Lagos is making how many billions? as IGR. In those years, can you tell me a landmark project that he made in Lagos? I will tell you two things Asiwaju did in Lagos for me that was very clear. He did LASMA, he did KAI. Give me a landmark project with all these IGR during his tenure. And I'll give you landmark project during BRF and Ambodi on this IGR. You understand me? How much is Lagos State owing now with all the IGR? We are the highest indebted city in Nigeria. It's clear, right? We are the richest, but with the highest debt in Nigeria. You understand? If you are coming out to talk about Asiwaju, which I believe I know more about him than you do, let us come to the table with facts.
Maybe also answer the IGR question.
Please.
Yes. My brother, don't take it too personal. That you know better more than me, you know Asiwaju better more than me, does not mean that you are more committed to Asiwaju's project more than me. Take that as a fact. The IGR, he is talking that about IGR, all these ideas. I just want to mention two fundamental projects which I want him to contend with. The initiation or the takeoff of Eco-Atlantic projects and the Lekki Free Zone, Lekki Free Zone project, which of course Fashola developed upon. Then apart from that, the infrastructural decay, that is what I'm trying to say. Infrastructural decay in Lagos is unprecedented. Tinubu have already laid the foundation for the Fashola government to improve upon. Fashola laid the foundation for Ambode to improve upon. You have to, this is a simple political deduction. Then you are talking of debt. One of the most indebted countries in the world is America. But their economy is still vibrant because you cannot be taking money in its raw form. You have to invest it. The investment is what is most important.
Mr. Badmus,
my brother, investment in Lagos,
my brother,
on Lagos is glaring for everybody.
My brother,
I don't want you to be too economical.
You are yet. You said Lekki. Excuse me.
Let's leave sentiment.
There's no sentiment here, right? You don't know the level of my commitment. But all I'm telling you are playing politics with this thing. And let me tell you something, Mr. Badmus, right? I want you to be very clear and objective. Clearly, what area of decay are you talking about in Lagos? Is it the schools or the hospital?
Road.
Or road. Look at which road, please tell me. Which hospital? Tell me.
Road.
Which road? Tell me. Name the roads for me. Wait now. Wait. Take it easy. Take it easy. I'm very calm. You are not calm. I'm very calm. I'm very calm. Did you just mention Ayinke?
Take it. You don't need to get unnecessarily apprehensive with this.
I'm not.
My brother, tell me the situation of Tell me the situation of lawsuit in 1999.
You don't have any idea.
1999.
You don't have any idea. You don't have any idea.
Don't tell me I don't have any idea.
Excuse me. See,
tell me the situation of.
The point is that you said roads.
Now, I don't think we'll be able to achieve much.
You are just claiming you are a negotiator. You don't know much about Lagos. You are just being sentimental.
Excuse me, about what?
One of the best beneficiaries of Asiwaju's political mentorship. You can't be talking like this because of politics.
No.
I know you very well.
I'm talking clearly.
You don't need to
excuse me. You see.
So you don't need to go so low.
You are getting sentimental and you are getting worked up. Right?
Because you don't support Asiwaju today.
Excuse me.
There's always a tomorrow after.
All right, Mr. Badmus, just hang on a minute. We need to go at this point in time. All right, gentlemen, we need to wrap up. But it's lots of people just wondering what's going on. But I guess. But you didn't answer the question. So are you going to support his candidature?
As I sit down, I'm an APC member. I'm an APC member.
Clearly, yeah.
That's right. So, and I have the candidate as of now. If I decide not to support him, that is something within me.
Okay. Have you?
Sorry? I've not decided yet.
That's what I said.
February is still a long time in politics.
Okay.
So, an
there you go.
APC
Live
member,
politics.
You're not supporting your candidate who is the candidate of the APC?
I've not made that comment that I wouldn't support APC candidates, but I may not support all APC candidates.
All right.
I may support some of them, I may not support all of them.
All right, we need to go at this point in time. Mr. Tunde Bankantini is an APC chieftain and spokesperson of Concerned Lagos. Thank you very much, Indy, for your time today.
Thank you so much.
short?
Yeah, my party short is that, number one, I just want to appeal to my brother. The role he's playing now, it might portray him to the world as being a mole, which might not be too good for his reputation and standard. But at the same time, I believe the party will reach out to him, which is the normal strategy and approach of APC. We reach out to aggrieved, parties. But we don't.
You think it's aggrieved? You don't think it's trying to point out the truth?
It's not, sir, ma'am?
You don't think it's trying to point out the truth?
It's not pointing out any truth. All what he has said is purely politics.
Okay, it's a fine place.
Purely politics.
It's a fine place to leave it. We have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. We have been speaking with Mr. Wale Badmus, who is the Executive Director, Southwest Grand Alliance for Tinubu Shettima 2023 campaign. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Well, this is where we have to leave the program this morning. We have a couple of mails, but we'll be looking at them perhaps tomorrow. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogunyeso.
Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Have a splendid day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And I am Chamberlain Osov. Goodbye.